Hello, and welcome to another episode on how to convert your car from gas to electric. Well, in last week's episode, we talked about how long does it take. Well, we're still trying to find out the answer to that with this particular project. And this project being the 1964 Mercedes 230 SL. Well, good news. The end of last week, we received the batteries in after, waiting for quite a while, weeks. The first batch got lost, and then the second batch sat in Sacramento for about 6 days, which is only 2.5 hours from here. The motor and controllers showed up Monday, but we're still missing the adapter coupler, which is needed in order to mount the motor in here and to get exact measurements for our motor mount, so forth. So, we're still asking the question, but that's not what this episode's about. Today's episode, we're actually going to talk about what can you do while you're waiting. Some of the things that you can do while you're waiting would be to install components that you know where they're going to go, that aren't dependent on tight space requirements due to other components and so forth. Under the hood of this car, we have a very limited amount of space, and everything, when you calculate it out on paper, everything is very, very snug. But there are a couple things that we can do. So we're going to work on that even without the adapter coupler. We found out this morning that it's going to be at least another 2 weeks before we receive those parts. One of the things that you can do is DC wiring. You could, do a lot of your DC wiring ahead of time. Another thing to do, like in this car, if you knew how many cells were going in the back, you could do the rear battery pack and do that containment and get that part done. Then DC to DC converters, we have a spot where we're going to put those. Let me show you the motor sitting in the engine bay of the Mercedes, and we have a cell sitting next to it, and kind of get an idea of the room and restrictions that we're up against. So here's the engine bay. And that's the motor in place pretty much where it's going to sit. We have an issue on this end where the steering goes across. We have a steering line that makes a little jog in order to get an angle to go into the port, and the motor's up against that. And so we're going to have to modify, either go with a different connection there, or do something to modify the steering in that point so as to get clearance. We can't have the motor making contact. So we're sitting on it right now. And that's kind of close to the angle everything's going to be in line with the transmission. Like I said, because of the steering, we can't really go down much more. That's about the stock height, or the height it was when the engine was in here, where the transmission is now. Once the motor's in there, we have 50 of these cells to put in here. So we have 50 of these guys right here that need to fit in this vehicle. Now, the bulk of them need to go up front because that's how this car was designed, that's how it's sprung. It needs to have the bulk of the weight up front. We don't want to put too much weight in the back. And we have some serious volume restrictions in the back that I'm going to show you in a moment. This is kind of showing you where the hood is. The hood does have a little bit of a crown in it. So, I mean, we could, bring this up a ways, but not a lot of crown. Okay, quick little shot of the hood. We're looking at the cowl end of the hood. And so you can see that there's kind of a frame and then it's raised in the center. But as far as an arc to it, it's a little higher than we have our string, but not a lot. How are we going to then put this 12-inch tall cell in there? So this is 12 inches tall. We can rotate the motor so the terminals are off to the side. But you can see, sitting on it here, I just barely have enough clearance. And we're going to have to be above that with our rack. So we could do that back there. Up here, pretty tight. And as you go out closer to the edges, it'll be more of an issue. One of the things that we're doing while we're waiting for the one missing component, and of course it's a key missing component. One of the things with these lithium cells is that they can be oriented vertically. We can put them like this, we can put them like this. You can't put them upside down. And why would you? But you can't because they have a venting system. You defeat that by putting them upside down. So we could put these, like I said, we could put them vertically like this in rows. We could put them like this in rows. You could go like this. There's enough room here where you can get to the interconnects for inspection and so forth. So that's an option. The thing is to figure out what's going to work best. And again, you could put them like this. So what's going to give you the most cells for that area? The issue we have is here's the cross member. Basically this axle spindle's right in line right here. The cross member actually makes a little jog back. So this is kind of this weight center on the front of the car. And we don't want to come too far forward of that. We want to keep the weight between the axles if at all possible. So even though we have some room up here, between the motor and the grill, we don't really want to put batteries in that area. That area, we have controllers to put in here still. And this one, because this is the the AC 35 times 2, we've got 2 controllers. Let me bring one of those over. So to kind of help you get the scale of things, here's a controller. Here it is next to the battery, down near the motor. This has a little more width that you don't see, or depth, however we want to look at it, because it doesn't have the chill plate on it yet. So that's about the same thickness as the heatsink is. Let's take a look at the trunk and give you an idea of kind of the space restrictions we have there. Well, here's the trunk. So, between the shock towers here, we have about 33 inches. We can't use all of that, so let's say 30 inches by about 30 inches. But again, we can't use all of that. And even more of that width we can't use because of the spare tire well. The spare tire well actually goes like this. So we're not wanting to put the batteries inside the trunk. Because we removed the gas tank and we have that area, the gas tank was pretty flat. It would allow us to recess the cells down a ways. Now we can't go 12 inches down, but we can put, a fair amount down. Our low point currently on the back end of the car is the spare tire well, and you can see it's been bottomed out a few times. So we don't want to go quite as low as it is. But we need to, fit between here and there. And so this is all offset this way, which limits how far we can go this way because we want to keep the weight centered. So, we can't just say, hey, we can go from here all the way over there. Well, that would throw more weight to the right side of the vehicle. So, because of the encroachment here, it's the same as if we had an encroachment on the opposite side. So again, let me bring over a couple cells and give you an idea of just how they look in the car. Just to give you an idea, probably the most we could get across if we went this way with them would be 3, but we'd have to do some modification to the spare tire wheel well. The other thing is to, do rows in another direction, and you could calculate how many you can go that way, as well as, so forth. And basically, that's what we do. We draw it all out on paper, and we actually do it on a CAD design program, and we just swap them around and see what we can get to fit best. And so not only is it a volumetric issue, it's a weight issue. This is 12.5 pounds. Told you what my least enjoyable part is, and that's the weight. My favorite part of doing a conversion is the design. The design and the wiring. It's a challenge to do cars like the Miata and Minis. Small cars are a much more of a challenge to do because of the restrictions in area and space. And this is no exception, even though it's not a bad sized car overall. It's got a huge passenger compartment. There's a lot of space in there. So the car is eaten up by cabin area, the trunk and the engine bay are rather small, and this had a small engine in it originally. This was a 2.3 liter inline six. And so, you know, it doesn't lend itself real well to trying to cram a lot of batteries into it. But we're gonna make it work. This is gonna be one sweet ride when it's done. This car is quite the attention getter, and it's a fun little car. And so looking forward to be able to start making some progress. So little more design time, wait. So hopefully in another probably 3 weeks, once we get the adapter, we can start really rocking and rolling on this. All these delays though have pushed us to an even busier time. We've been busy, and so not being able to get on this is no big deal. We're not short on things to do. But that being said, they said this is middle of April. As we go further, this is already the beginning of the show season. Our Car McGee will be racing at Laguna Seca the end of June. We have Miata events that we'll be at. There's a lot of stuff going on that starts in April. April through the end of October. That's our busiest time because we have so many things going on simultaneously. We also in May have our first of 2 workshops for 2017 coming up. That's completely booked. We do have a few openings for the August workshop, and I recommend that if you're interested that you get signed up right away, because once May filled up, people start thinking further out, and because they're small classes, bang, it's over and done with real quick. And we've already had to turn quite a few people away that want to do it in May. I appreciate you watching. I hope you found a little something of interest in this week's video. We said we were going to do one once a week. We really didn't have anything too exciting planned. Well, we did, just didn't work out that way because we're waiting on components. So we thought we'd fill that space with how you fill that time. So hope to see you again next Wednesday. Thanks for watching.